Hey guys, welcome to or back to the channel. Guys, so Jen put a poll up on the Facebook group to ask which book we should read for our next reading vlog, and here are the results. Obviously, Freida McFadden won by a landslide, so we are definitely going to be reading Never Lie by Freida McFadden. But we were thinking, why only read one Freida McFadden book? I mean, everyone loves The Housemaid. The Housemaid's Secret just came out, and she has other books in backlog that she's written in the past. So you know what? We're not just going to read one book. We're going to read 4.
So let's talk Freida McFadden. Amanda and I are doing a vlog on 4 of her books. Amanda knows that I have really liked Freida McFadden, and she and I talked about her because I recently read The Housemaid and The Housemaid's Secret, and I feel like I talked a lot about Freida McFadden. So the way I discovered Freida McFadden, I was on a Facebook group called Psychological Thrillers Fans, Lovers, something like that. I'm on a few of those groups, and I kept seeing the same name pop up again and again and again, which was Freida McFadden. I had never heard of Freida McFadden, and there's a lot of authors on there that are only on Kindle or only on ebooks. So at first I thought it was just that. And I saw so many that I ended up looking it up because I was like, wow, people are really loving her books. I have to look into this because it's kind of crazy how much people were talking about her books. And the only way it seemed like you could get it is if you ordered through that online place I don't like to order through. And so I thought, well, I'll just wait. I wasn't in a huge rush. There's enough out there for me to read that I wasn't going to hunt them down. But then I saw The Housemaid at Barnes & Noble one day, and I picked it up. I was like, oh, there's Freida McFadden. I'm going to try this. This looks interesting. So it's one of those books that I wish I had done a reaction video to because it just has jaw-dropping moments. And so the book I'm going to talk about in this video is The Housemaid. I read it in 2 days, and as anyone who has watched previous videos knows, I don't read that quickly. It's something that either it's going to read really fast just because it almost feels like it's candy for the brain, is the way her books are. They are very easy to read, and I think it's also how the pages are typed up too. I feel like they're not that long. You're able to get through pages super quick. But it's also the plot line is pulling you forward because you're like, what is happening? And that book in particular was just, to me, crazy, the things that are happening. Anyone who's read Verity by Colleen Hoover, I feel it was very similar. Those books have very similar plot lines and similar twists, I guess you would call it. But with The Housemaid, it's a character named Millie, and she is out of prison. She has to check in with her, and I'm forgetting the name of it, when you have to check in and make sure that you're getting a job and that you're on the up and up. I can't remember the name for it afterwards. Anyway, so she is trying to get a job desperately. It's hard for her to get a job, and she finally gets this job being a housemaid for this couple. And the husband seems very nice and loving to his wife, and she starts to get like a crush on this husband, and the wife, the woman of the house, seems so not all there upstairs, like just doing crazy things, and Millie doesn't know what's going on, but she thinks there's something wrong with the wife. And also, spoiler alert, because I'm going to talk about a couple of the huge twists. So what ends up happening is she gets very involved with the husband, and she's falling for him, and she comes to find out that the husband is crazy. And the wife takes off and acts like she's really broken up about it. And Millie is now with the husband, and she ends up being locked in a room, and she is just trying to figure out what the heck is happening. And you come to find out in a backstory with the wife that there is more to what you have seen. And the wife was pretty much like an abuse situation where this guy is just crazy. And he did things to her where the wife ended up plotting to get out of it. And she was making herself unattractive and doing things so that the husband wouldn't want her anymore, and kind of even set it up so that Millie and he would get involved so that she can get out. But towards the end, and I'm finding out that this is maybe Freida's formulaic. I don't know if she's going to do this through all her books. I haven't read all of them, but there are many twists at the end and many things that happen where I remember several times after I read, I put the book down and I just kind of stared and said, what the fuck is happening? So I feel like it's a great book. It's really hard for me to give 5 stars to a book. 5 stars to me is not just something that I loved reading and enjoyed, but I also give 5 stars because I feel like it's very well written, almost like a poetry to it, and how the writing is in the book. I gave it, if I could, I probably would have given it a little over 4 stars, but I feel like you can only do 4 or 5 stars. I really, really loved the book, and I have been waiting for the sequel. After I read The Housemaid, Freida announced she has her own group on Facebook, which I ended up joining, and she announced that there was a sequel, because I read this towards the tail end of last year, and the sequel came out this past February, and I will be doing that book in a separate video. So The Housemaid's Secret, I just finished actually. I just finished the day before yesterday, and again, it only took me 2 days. So that one I'll be talking about next.
Okay, so I have read 4 Freida McFadden books for this vlog, and the first Freida McFadden book I ever read, The Housemaid. So we're going to talk about this one for a second. Jen read this book a long time ago. She absolutely loved this book. She said, Amanda, you have to read this. Oh my gosh, you have to read this book. So for this vlog, I'm reading it. I read The Housemaid, The Housemaid's Secret, Never Lie, and The Inmate. Okay, so first we're going to talk about The Housemaid. This is the most popular book. I'm not sure how it compares to The Housemaid's Secret, but so far as I know, this book is really what put Freida McFadden on the map and got put on everyone's radar in the book community. My camera's swaying because of the wind. Okay. So this is the first book I read, and I really liked this book. This book kept my attention. I mean, all of these books are bangers. All of these books you can read very quickly. You just get so sucked into the book. So in this book, you're not sure what to think. I didn't know, like, everything, every situation, every person in this book was odd. And so it makes it hard to know who to trust, who's right, who, you know, where it's going. That's where the twists come in. So you're following a woman, and she has been in prison before for murder. So that's odd. And she's out now, and she's looking for a job. She can't get a job. She's living out of her car. Then all of a sudden, this job offer comes up to be a housemaid for these rich people. They're husband and wife. They have a daughter. And so she goes to do an interview in the very beginning of this book. She does an interview for this job, and there's a gardener who's weird. Okay, he's an Italian immigrant, and he doesn't speak English, and he keeps looking at her, staring at her, acting weird. He keeps saying some Italian word to her, kind of weird, but she's desperate for this job, so she takes it. And then the husband is weird because he's overly nice, right? That's so odd. He's like odd, overly nice. You're like, why is this guy so nice? And then the housewife is obviously odd because she's mean. She treats this housemaid like Cinderella. You know, the middle of the book, I was thinking this is like Cinderella. There's just so many instances where the housewife is just mean and hateful, intentionally causes messes. And then you have a little girl in the book who is the child of the husband and wife, and she is just comes off as a real spoiled brat. She just, you know, she hates this housemaid for no apparent reason. It's kind of odd. And then there's the room the housemaid is given in this home to stay in, which is really odd. It's this little attic. There's there's one door that locks from the outside, and the window does not open. So it's odd. Just everything about the beginning and the setting, the characters in this book, they're all a little odd. So you don't know what to think. You don't know who to trust, and you don't know what's going to happen. So this book sucks you in, and you just have to keep reading to find out how all these pieces are going to put together.
The Housemaid's Secret, the second book I read by Freida McFadden, and I had been really looking forward to this book because The Housemaid had really sucked me in. It was just a crazy ride, and the things that happened in there, I constantly had my jaw dropping and putting the book down. And I was texting a couple of my friends who also read psychological thrillers and telling them they had to read this book because I wanted to discuss it, and it was just crazy. It very much reminded me of Verity by Colleen Hoover, which I had read. It's actually the only Colleen Hoover book I had read. And this one, though, I feel like Freida took it even a step further, if that could even be a thing, because Verity is also kind of crazy. Housemaid's Secret is the follow-up. We see Millie as she's kind of struggling, and we find out that she has a new boyfriend, and she's looking for a job again and ends up being a housemaid again. And you find out that she has been helping other women in similar situations, which she has helped before, which was a similar situation that she had in The Housemaid. This one, I felt a little let down with this one because it didn't seem to be as crazy as the first one. I was expecting, I guess, twists and turns earlier in the book. You do get them at the very end. I feel that that Freida makes up for it at the end, because there were several twists that happened within the last 100 pages, I want to say. So I ended up liking it because I felt like the ending really tied up and made you like, the end made it feel like a roller coaster of just twists and turns and things are happening. And there were a few that I kind of guessed, and then there was a big one that I did not guess. A couple that I did not guess at the end. And I felt like you ended up having just as crazy a ride as The Housemaid, just it had different pacing than the first one. So this one, I still gave this one 4 stars. The Housemaid, I wanted to give it like 4.5 stars, which I know you can't really do on Goodreads, but this one was a very solid 4 stars for me.
The next book is The Housemaid's Secret, and this is the second book in the series following The Housemaid's Secret. So without giving away spoilers, you're following the housemaid, and she has some new clients that she's working with, and again, everything is a little odd, a little off about the situation, and you're kind of trying to piece together, you know, who's the good person, who's the bad person, and some characters from the first book come back in this book, and you just get this feeling where you don't know who to trust, you don't know what's going on, and you just have to keep reading to find out.
All right, I have finished number 3 of Freida McFadden, Never Lie. And true to form, just like The Housemaid and The Housemaid's Secret, I really got sucked into this right away. I was not wanting to stop reading. I actually got mad because I was headed to work one day and I was reading beforehand and I did not want to put this down. And I just love having books like that. It's just great to have books like that. I know I said in another video, it's almost like mind candy, but it's really true. Something in the way she's writing, I feel, is like literature crack. I feel like it's just like a drug that you just want to keep reading, which is one of the reasons why I originally got addicted to psychological thrillers. And I love having books that just move you along so quickly that you don't feel like you are dragging through anything. It's just, they go so fast. And I know that's one of the reasons why everyone always talks about how quickly they read these books, and it's true. So this one, I feel, was a little more psychological because I feel, and I don't know if this is what she intended, and hopefully if she's watching this video, she may have gotten this question before. I just saw a post by her where she was talking about Q&As and how she gets the same questions all the time, and I'm sure that can just be monotonous. But I don't know if she did this as a plot device, but I feel like you were purposefully being manipulated as the reader, talking about lying and just how she set it up in the beginning. I feel like you were purposefully being sent a certain way. And some of the things I thought were going to happen, once again, a couple of them I kind of got, but a majority of it I did not get. She's like queen of the twisting, and she twists so much throughout, and then especially at the end, that I'm kind of waiting for it at the end. I am reading one more for this vlog, which is the Inmate, and now I'm on to you. I'm on to you, Freida. I know what you're gonna do. And it'll be fun to see if I can guess what's next. Anyway, so in Never Lie, I definitely loved reading this. I loved all the twists at the end. It was set up so perfectly. When I had gone to work, I was actually telling my coworkers about this book because I just love how it was set up, with a couple who were going to see a house, meeting up with a real estate agent, and as they're driving up in this snowstorm, they see lights on the second floor, and as they get up to the front, they don't see a car, no one's answering the door. And I haven't read, none of the thrillers that I have read have matched that description. So right away I was like, okay, what's happening? Who's in the house? What's going on? And I just love that kind of setup. And then we twist and turn, and I obviously don't want to give away the ending if anyone's watching this just for a snippet to see if they want to read it. So I'm not going to spoil any of that for you, but I loved everything about how she plotted out this book, and I really loved it. It was a solid 4 stars for me. I want to say that the Housemaid is my favorite so far, not that I need to choose. But I feel like sometimes it's always the first book that you read by an author that you end up loving the most. But this one I would say is a very close second. So absolutely love this one.
Never Lie. This book is completely different from the Housemaid books. In this book, you're following a newlywed couple, and they are searching for a home to purchase so they can live in. And they go and visit this home, and they get snowed in. The realtor doesn't show up, and there's these really creepy things going on with this house. This house used to belong to a psychologist that has been missing for years, and everyone suspects the psychologist's boyfriend is the person that has taken her, but no one knows. No one's ever found a body, and you sort of unravel all these secrets about the couple, and you unravel all these secrets about the psychologist and her boyfriend and her patients. While this couple is snowed in this home, the woman finds a hidden room full of recordings where the psychologist has recorded her patients, and she listens to those, and you get to follow along. And this is so interesting. I just loved this book. I love the premise. I love the psychology. aspect of it. I loved the idea to listen to the tapes of her patients, because you kind of are getting an insight into the sessions, and you get an insight kind of into the mind of the patient, and you really don't know. I mean, this book had so many twists and turns. Like, you really don't know what's going on until the end. There's a few twists that you can guess, and you might be able to see coming, but you just don't know. You don't know till the end, and I loved this book till the very last word.
I finished number 4, The Inmate, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I am going to venture and say that this one has become my favorite of Freida so far. I didn't think anything would beat The Housemaid, but this one did it. I just loved the twists and turns of this one a lot. And I'm not just saying this, but I did end up guessing a couple of her twists at the end. I think I'm just getting used to, after reading several in a row, I'm getting used to some of what Freida's doing and how she's doing the plots and the twists. But once again, at the end, she is just queen of twist on top of twists, and she ends up throwing something in there and ending it on something that kind of just surprised me. She has a way of just putting in little details at the end and just surprising the reader, and I absolutely love this one. I wish you can give something between 4 and 5 stars. I would definitely give this like a 4.5, a solid 4.5 stars. But to give a little about the plot of this one, there is a woman, her name is Brooke. She goes back home because her parents had been killed, and she is going to take care of the house that is willed to her. And she has a son who's 10 years old. And 10 years prior, when she was in high school, she had been part of a traumatic murder that happened with her and her friends and her boyfriend. And she ended up putting her boyfriend in jail because she believes he was the murderer. She gets a job, nurse practitioner, and she ends up working at the state penitentiary where he is. And you find out that she doesn't completely remember that night, and she starts to think that she may have made a mistake as to who really murdered. And I don't want to give too much away, but that's the basic gist, and you start to wonder along with her. Something I was thinking about, especially when she got the job at the penitentiary, I was talking about this with someone at work, and every time I think that something, I feel like you need to have a certain amount of suspension of belief when you're reading some of these books. But then there are times that I read my news feed or, the newspaper and see what's going on in the world. And then you realize how much of this happens in real life. And there are just situations that happen even if it doesn't seem real. So I feel something that Freida does really well is that she recognizes that the reader may be questioning some of what happens, and she doesn't leave it out there for everyone to either criticize, in terms of, she ends up saying something towards the end of the book to address what you may consider a plot hole. I don't even know if I would say a plot hole, but it just addressed the fact that things that it seemed odd for some of the situations to happen. And I'm trying not to say specific things just because I don't want to ruin the book. I'm not giving any spoilers, because the other thing with Freida's books, I feel you really want to go into these books without knowing too much, because I feel then you are really getting the true experience of how she writes these books and how the twists happen. Because if you had known what was happening, I don't feel like you would like this as much. I feel like it's a ride that you're riding for her books. But I am very, very happy. I could have done, actually, I was thinking of telling Amanda we should do another episode and read 4 more, because she does have, I think she has a lot more, actually, like 6 more, because I could keep reading her. Usually I get sick when I'm of one author that I keep reading, but I would definitely read more of her right now. I am jumping to another genre, for my next read, but I could definitely keep going with her if we should do another episode. But I would highly recommend Freida in general, but I gave this one a very solid 4.5 stars.
We also read The Inmate by Freida McFadden, obviously, and I also loved this book. This book, you're following a nurse practitioner. In this book, you're following a nurse practitioner, and she has a little 10-year-old child that she's responsible for. She's having a hard time getting a job, so she goes back to her hometown and she finds a job in this prison as the doctor in the prison. And she actually has a past with one of the inmates. You find out that when they were kids, one of the inmates was put in prison for the rest of his life for murder, and she testified against him to put him there. So you can, as you can imagine, the interactions with this inmate are very personal, and you kind of unravel the story of what happened in their past. Why is he in prison? What did she do to put him there? She has a best friend that was also present the night that these murders took place, that the inmate has been blamed for. And he shows back up into the story. He happens to be the principal at her son's school, so you kind of get a background on him, and this whole story unravels. It takes place in a small town. You're behind bars in a prison system, which fascinates me. I'm very curious about what goes on inside prisons. I mean, everyone knows to an extent what goes on inside prisons, but I just find that it's like a totally different world that is interesting to me. I don't want to obviously go to prison, but I do like to hear stories from inmates or people that have been inside, and to know what kind of goes on in there. But the setting in this was great. The characters in this was great. It's again one of those books that you don't really know. You go back and forth between who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, who can she trust, who can she not trust. There's all these little mysteries. Who's the father of her kid. All these little mysteries kind of throughout the book that you're given answers to, but you don't really see the whole picture. It's not tied together until the very end. And again, a very engrossing book. You just want to keep reading to find out what happens and solve all these little mysteries. This book did not disappoint.
So overall, for all the Freida books that we read for this vlog, if I had to choose, which I really don't want to, because as you guys saw with the ratings, I pretty much gave them the ratings that are really high. I wasn't really disappointed too much with any of the four. But if I had to choose of the four that I like the most, I surprised myself, and I would say The Inmate would be the one that I enjoyed the most out of the four. I thought The Housemaid, nothing was going to top that, because there were a lot of shocking elements to that one. I hadn't expected that when I first had picked her up, as much as I had seen everyone talking about her books and how much they love them and how they suck you in, and it takes you such little time to read them because there's so many twists and turns. I don't think I was quite prepared for some of the shocking things in The Housemaid. I don't feel any of the other ones had that element to it, not that you would need that, but I feel the reason why I love The Inmate, it had the traditional psychological thriller, at least for me, that I love. I love a plot line that something had happened in the past, and now you see the characters present day, and you don't have all the information, and there are things that are happening that didn't get resolved from what that is. And in this case, in The Inmate, there were murders that had happened on what was supposed to be a fun night with these five teenagers, and there were murders that happened, and you are pulled in because you're not given all that much information, but you're seeing some of the characters present day. So you're wondering who survived from that, what really happened. And there's something about that type of plot that really draws me in, and I feel Freida did it very, very well. I feel it kept me pulled in, wondering who was the killer. Was there going to be some outside person that was introduced? Was it going to be one of the characters? Sometimes I even wonder, is it the narrator? Is it an unreliable narrator? And I feel she writes books enough, like she's giving you enough of a story that it's keeping you lured into finding out what eventually happens. And then she kind of twists even at the end, when sometimes you're just given one twist, one big twist at the end. I feel she twists and twists, and you just keep wondering, okay, is there going to be something else? Is this wrapped up? And I feel in that book, the pacing, I just loved it. I love the pacing. I love how she presented us with all the information, and I felt like I really, I mean, it didn't take me long for any of them. I mean, it took basically 2 days for each of them, but I felt like that one of the four, if I had to choose. But I really loved all her books. I think that it would be a great idea to do another vlog on all of her other books, and let's just do all the rest of them, because I really would want to read every single book of hers, even if we don't do another vlog. I know I'm going to end up reading the rest of her books because I just loved reading them. They're just great to read.
My absolute favorite of all the books was Never Lie by Freida McFadden. My absolute favorite of these 4 books is Never Lie. This book just was not unlike anything I had read before. I loved the setting. I loved the spookiness of the big house. I loved the mystery around the psychologist and all her patients. I loved the interactions between the wife and husband. I loved the interactions between the wife and husband and kind of figuring them out. They're a fairly new couple, so they don't know everything about each other. They got married very quickly, and I just liked this whole setup. There was nothing you could take for granted. There was nothing that you knew for certain. So great book. Of the 4, this one's my favorite.
I wouldn't say most disappointed, because it's not that much. It would be dramatic to say that, but I was expecting more with Housemaid's Secret. I think because there were so many shocking elements with the Housemaid, that I thought that the follow-up would have a matching amount, or it would even, trump it, or, do something even crazier. And I felt it was muted, and I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if it was just me, but I felt it kind of was like flatter. It still had a lot of plot. There's still things you're trying to guess, but for some reason, it just didn't grab me as much as the first one. So that one, I did really like Never Lie as well, and it was hard for me to pick, because the Housemaid, Never Lie, and the Inmate are so close, like, to me, in terms of which one I would have to pick. But Housemaid's Secret was kind of a letdown for me. But I'm pretty sure I still gave it 4 stars, because I do still feel like there was a lot of story there. But obviously, I'm just talking as in comparison to each other. And
my least favorite, surprisingly, of all these was The Housemaid. And the only reason it was my least favorite was because I had read tropes similar to this, so I kind of figured this one out faster than the other books. So this book wasn't as super new and shocking, the premise behind this book, to me. However, this book, the way that it's written and the way that you get engrossed in the story and you just want to find out everything going on, it's just, if you loved this book, then you need to keep reading all of Freida's books, because this book, in my mind, a wonderful book, don't get me wrong, but of these 4, I have to say it's probably my least favorite.
So I'm really hoping that we get to do another vlog with Freida. I really loved her books. I really enjoyed reading them, and hopefully Amanda agrees to doing another video.
Alright, sorry guys, I had to turn around and face the wind because it keeps blowing my hair. So overall, great books. We love Freida McFadden on this channel. I want to read all of her books. I just devour them. I just get sucked in and just want to keep reading them. The next book I'm going to read is probably her newest book that just came out, Ward D. I am really excited to order that and get that in so I can read it. Maybe we'll do it as a vlog. If not, I know it'll at least be mentioned in my wrap-ups. So hit that subscribe button, keep watching the channel for more book talk.